Is this thing
everyone.
working? Hi! So guys, for today's video, the cat just ran away. Welcome to the first live stream I've ever done on my channel. This is Sarah.
I feel so happy to be a part of it. I'm really honored that it was your very first time. This is actually my first time live on YouTube, but not my first time live. That's something I do on the reg.
So for today, I wanted to introduce you to my friend Sarah, who is a certified counselor, as well as a bodybuilder who has a bun in the oven right now.
I'm not bodybuilding right now. That would be rough.
Hi! So we just wanted to sit down and I wanted to talk to you live with, of course, the help of a certified counselor about a couple of issues that I've dealt with, a couple of issues that I know a lot of other people are dealing with, and just open up the comments to you guys. If you have questions, if you want to talk to a counselor, if you want to get the chance to ask me questions. Specifically, we wanted to address LGBT+ issues. June is Pride Month, and I know that, sometimes it's hard to know how to support people or how to identify yourself. Also wanted to touch on mental health, which is something that I've dealt with, and of course physical appearance, because for me having acne, that's always been huge. And then being in the modeling industry, there are experiences that I've had with body image issue that I didn't understand until I got out of that industry. And being someone who's done bodybuilding, you can talk extensively on nutrition, which is awesome. And just all those things that go with it, from my experiences that I haven't really talked about with mental health or self-harm, etc. Hi guys, and so first off, hello to all of you. Thank you for the comments. It says bad connection, so I apologize. Hi, Matthew. How's it going? So first off, Sarah, tell us a little bit more about you, about how you got started in counseling, and about kind of what your mission is going forward.
Sure. So I am originally from Arizona, hence the cactus earrings I'm rocking today. I was a licensed professional counselor in the state of Arizona for about 6 years. I now practice online on a platform called betterhelp.com, and I'll tell you guys a little bit more about that in our broadcast. And I counsel people of all ages with all types of different challenges in their lives, many different transitions that people are going through. And I love counseling and I love helping people with that. I created my own wellness website. It's called projectpotential.co. That focuses on 3 things: grow, nourish, flex. Grow, which has to do with mindset; nourish, which has to do with nutrition; and flex, which has to do with physical activity, as she just demonstrated. And those things are important, and I believe those things in that order are what creates long-term sustainable results for people. Arizona is the best. Thank you, Empathy Flower.
Awesome. And so Sarah, especially when it comes to, counseling and those issues, you guys kind of already know my story, and Sarah does as well, but I'll start off by talking a little bit more about that, and especially kind of how that relates to, the fact that I never saw a counselor because I kind of felt ashamed.
That is a common belief and common feeling that people have.
It was so strange, growing up, and you guys, I know I'm going to talk about this more on my channel soon, but I kind of always had a picking problem, and it started off with my nails when I was little. And then especially when I got acne, it just completely took over my face, and I would start picking and excoriating at my skin. And although I don't talk about this on my channel, later down the line, that led to some very negative behaviors and self-harm. But something that was so strange is that from the very beginning, I felt this societal pressure of hide and conceal, and don't talk about your picking, don't talk about your acne, don't talk about, these relationships that you're going through that are really difficult. And there was absolutely no way I could reach out to a counselor on those kind of things. So for someone who is maybe younger, or for going through those life transitions and feels like there's no one to reach out to, what are we supposed to do? Because I had the internet, which was awesome.
Yeah.
But what about other people who feel like they can't talk to anyone, or what are those first steps? Like, what does that even look like?
So one of the things that I think is really excellent about having a counselor is you're working with somebody who is non-biased. They are going to give you unconditional positive regard. A lot of the people who care about us and love us sometimes are not the people that can give us the advice that we need, because they are so closely related to the situation and what's going on. So even if that means talking to someone like at your school, like a counselor at your school, even if that means journaling, that's something that's very therapeutic, that helps people. And I'm sure that's something that you probably were like sharing pages essentially out of your journal without sharing pages out of your journal, which was YouTube. One of the things I wanted to say that's interesting, so shameless plug right now for Starbucks. Today's the last day that they have the Cups of Kindness available. Cups of Kindness, you have a what, violet?
I got the vegan violet coconut milk one.
I have
from
the
Lady Gaga.
Matcha lemonade. So Cups of Kindness is actually an organization that was founded by Lady Gaga and Prince William, believe it or not. And the idea...
Wait, like Prince William with the wife and the kids?
Yeah, that one.
Oh my God, that's so cool!
They actually created this organization, which is called the Born This Way Foundation. And just today, through the end of today, by buying one of these Starbucks Cups of Kindness drinks, 25 cents rather, goes to the Born This Way Foundation, which removes the stigma and is helping to remove the stigma about mental health so that you can seek professional services, and hopefully we're moving towards that acceptance that people are more comfortable to talk about what's going on for them personally.
Yeah. And so one thing when it comes to mental health, I think that when it comes to acne, or when it comes to what you guys, hi guys, have kind of told me, I hear a lot of people who struggle with the same issues as me. Sometimes it's kind of an OCD issue in picking. Sometimes it's depression. Sometimes it's actual body dysmorphic disorder, or disorders that are related to how we look. Being in the modeling industry, it was hard at times for me to feel beautiful about myself. And you have to remind yourself that just because someone else is beautiful doesn't mean that you're not. But at the same time, growing up, and especially in a world of social media where there's all these likes and comparisons, how are you supposed to not compare? And then for me, mental illness, I did need to get professional help for my own safety, which was also, it was very challenging for me because I felt like I had given up everything, and I felt like I was a baby again. I felt like I had kind of lost my identity. I was like, why do I need to seek help? But that in turn actually brought me to a place where I was more confident. And Matthew, thank you for sharing that you had body dysmorphia. Whether it's acne, whether it's body image, that's a condition where people see themselves as something that they're not. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's almost like it's tough because you are in those years very formative in figuring out who you are. And so a lot of times we believe, I can take this on myself, but I want to say it's almost like the catharsis of crying. So crying is cathartic in that it can actually bring you some peace, but at some point, being able to reach outside of yourself is that strength. And so while you might tell yourself that it's not okay to reach additional services, it's actually it's to me a mark of strength that you're able to share that.
Yeah, I remember one of my favorite cats when I was little, named Handsome Hunk, passed away, and I remember that was the first time I ever saw my dad cry. And I kind of thought to myself, like, oh my God, my dad's crying. Like, something must be wrong, because he never cried. And the only other time I think I saw him cry was when his father passed away. But as I got older, it made me realize, like, we're conditioned not to cry or not to show emotion. But emotion is what helps us grow and heal. And even stress is something that can help us connect with other people. Because when I'm super stressed out, I used to isolate. And that was very negative, because of course that spiraled into depression, which spiraled into negative coping techniques. But now when I get stressed, I reach out to someone. And maybe I wouldn't be reaching out to someone or taking a break that I need if I wasn't stressed. So I almost see stress in a positive way. There's actually a great TED Talk from an ex-professor of mine, Kelly McGonigal. It's called... I don't remember what it's called, but it's like Stress is Good for You. And it's this explanation of how she, as a professional, was telling people not to be stressed, and it was making the condition worse. Whereas if she saw stress as a tool that people could use to reach out and communicate, it became better. So speaking of that, and speaking of Pride Month, and I know you work so hand in hand with the LGBT community, let's just open up. Like, I feel there's a lot of fear around the LGBT community and a lot of misunderstanding. I've personally dated someone who identified as transgender, and for me, that was really difficult, because I was just like, well, what are you? What does that make me? Like, how does this all work? Because there's all these freaking labels. And then growing up, I had some very traumatizing experiences when it came to dating, which I don't talk about, because it's something that I should probably see a counselor before like spreading it on the internet. But it's those kind of things where, Sarah, how do you identify yourself? Are you supposed to put labels on yourself? And if someone comes to you and has an issue with their sexuality or their gender identity, how are you supposed to help them? And what are the differences between sexuality, gender identity, etc.?
Right. So a lot of questions there. I want to give you guys some advice actually about working with and knowing people who identify in the LGBT spectrum and also as an alliant. So what I would say is there's 3 steps that I wanted to share with you guys today. The first is listen. So this has to do with people who are either in the coming out phase or they have gender identity issues that they're dealing with. So the first is listen, because not everybody is going to define themselves in the same way. One of the words that you used a minute ago, which I love, is compare. We don't want to compare. Everybody has their own experience, and you want them to define that experience for you because they are the ones who are having that experience. Second is that you are going to respond. And when I say respond, I want you to recognize that you might be the very first person, treat it as though you are the very first person this person has ever shared this information with. Are you going to give them a treatment, meaning you are going to accept them and offer them something that they need to hear and that acceptance that they're looking for? Or are you going to give them trauma? Because a lot of times people, when they're hearing something for the first time that they're not expecting, they might respond in a way that's more reactive. So taking that time to be responsive versus reactive is something that's really important. So letting that person know and honoring, like, thank you so much. I would say thank you so much for trusting me with this information, because really that is very humbling that somebody has gone that deep with you, that they would share that.
Absolutely.
The third step, so we have listen, we have respond, and the third step is accept. Accept that everyone's journey is different, so it might take them longer to be at a place. It's not your news to share. Just as Cassandra was saying, I am almost 7 months pregnant. Now, no, I don't.
Okay.
I'm making an example of her. But even with something that's positive in our lives, we want to be the ones to share it. So it's the same when somebody's dealing with something that identifies who they are. So allow them the time that they need and give them the acceptance and the space to do that in, and just let them know that you are there for them the whole time.
Absolutely. And guys, thank you for all of your comments. Let's see. What is something if you can't look behind? Thank you. And Sarah, I feel like that also applies to other things in life, whether that's an eating disorder, whether that's insecurities about acne, taking your makeup off in front of the person you're dating or your crush for the first time. There's some people who I think we need to block. Let's see. I can put you in timeout? Okay, if we put somebody in timeout.
I'm intrigued by this because on my Periscope we don't block.
Okay.
But she does.
I don't try to block. It's just that I open all communication. You guys, I actually encourage you to post questions and post comments right now. But if anyone's cutting other people down, this is just a place of love and positivity, and just don't leave that here. Share your opinions. You are open to your opinion, but don't attack other people, please. Thank you. Hi from Denmark. So I definitely feel like that applies to other things as well. So way back when, the very first person that I ever dated, I didn't know actually was suffering from a mental disorder. And that was really hard for me because, like, what do you call young love? I was like so young. And this was very, very hard for me because also I was growing up. I was just dealing with acne. I felt like nobody understood me. And this was both my best friend and this person that I considered of significance. And all of a sudden, this person just ghosted on me. And I didn't know that they were hospitalized for their illness. But that was absolutely traumatic to me. And then, this is the person that I considered myself the closest to, and they still couldn't open up to me about their mental illness. And it just makes you realize, like, I've had people who have commented about acne and told me that there was this girl who had a husband who had never taken off her makeup in front of her husband because she was so scared and so ashamed. And speaking from personal experience, opening up and communication has been so helpful for me. But what are some of your tips or your professional counseling advice to people in relationships, how to improve a relationship and maybe how to open the topics of conversation, or when is it the right time to talk about those things?
So you guys might not like what I'm about to say, but the relationship is only as strong as you yourself are and the self-love that you have. So,
serving some realness, at least in my life. Wow. Wow.
Can you talk about why you felt like that spoke to you?
Why that spoke to me? Yes. So there was a relationship, after that initial relationship, young love, I was just destroyed. And then I started dating for the wrong reasons. And you guys remember I had a very more public relationship that was physically and mentally unstable and harmful. And of course, nobody saw that because I didn't show that on the internet. Mm-hmm. So when we broke up, everyone was like, well, what's wrong? What's going on? And so here I am feeling like this was a piece of not necessarily just me, but a piece of identity that I was holding on to. And I was like, this is my public identity. I need to maintain this. Mm-hmm. So then when things started going to crap, I was like, oh my God, well, I need to hold on. Like, this is who I am. This is who I need to pretend to be because I was so insecure about myself. Mm-hmm. And then like rewind, there was another relationship that I had about a year ago. And, you know, I felt very comfortable in that relationship, but I realized that the person that I was with was again suffering from a mental illness as they were diagnosed. And kind of seeing that transition from being on one side of that spectrum to being on the opposite side and seeing myself in both of those people was unreal. And as you mentioned, you know, the relationship is only as strong as you are yourself. Like that's just indicative of how each of these relationships started and progressed and ended. Wow. And how my personal feelings about myself increased, my relationships were better. There was more communication. And as my self-esteem was plummeting or decreasing, relationships went to crap, which is so interesting.
Somebody asked about long-distance relationships. I think that's a great question. One of the things that's necessary in all relationships, whether it's a friendship or an intimate relationship, is trust. So that's got to be on the forefront, whether it's long-distance or an in-person relationship, because trust is huge. When there's trust in a relationship, you don't think about it at all. When there's no trust, it's all you think about. So if that's something that's coming to the forefront of your mind often, then that's something you need to evaluate. Another thing is being able to have good communication, finding time to speak just as you would at the end of the day if you were meeting one-on-one with people. So that's really important for whoever had asked about the long-distance relationships.
That's so interesting. And I'll just kind of rewind. So there was a relationship that I was in, which was the first time I had dated after a long time. And it wasn't long distance, but it felt like it because I travel so much for work and for school and for all of these things. And in that relationship, it was like this person didn't even have social media accounts. No Facebook, no Twitter, no Instagram, like deleted Instagram after we met. And I was just like, but social media is my life. And, you know, having that kind of a long distance relationship, I think was very difficult because also I'm a bit better with that kind of stuff just because a lot of my friendships or my family connections are long distance. But for somebody else, I needed to be respectful of my partner and understand this person is not used to that. Which was very, very hard because I was having to put myself into somebody else's shoes, which, you know, we all try to do, but it's a lot easier said than done.
Somebody asked about avoidant personality disorders. Know that everybody struggles with fear, and some of us struggle with fear that is greater than others would be able to manage. And so that is something that you need to look into is where's the fear coming from? Because what looks as avoidant personality may have to do more deeply with the fear. Maybe being in a relationship or being around people makes me have to focus on the things that I'm struggling with internally. And so being able to check in with ourselves, journaling could be very helpful for that.
So I will speak a little bit to that. One of the hardest breakups that I ever went through was so hard because it was out of the blue. And again, this was another person who had a mental illness. And let's also rewind for a second. Like, I always wondered to myself, like, Cassandra, why do you like attract people with mental illnesses? Like, are you attracting like to like? Like, why is this always happening to you? And I was almost getting frustrated with myself. But then I realized it's not a me thing. We are all going through something. And the fact that we all have something that we're all not talking about, like, not being not normal is kind of the normal. But The hardest breakup that I ever went through came to me completely out of the blue. You guys remember when I like jumped off of Instagram. Again, this was the person who didn't have social media, and I was actually changing myself for this person. Because this person felt very triggered by my job. This person, who had their own issues was comparing themselves to me, which I wasn't aware of. But it was very hard because I was told that my job was perpetuating a negative image. I don't personally believe that, but I do believe that certain things in the modeling industry maybe weren't positive. But a relationship is supposed to challenge you in those good ways. So I was happy about that because they said to me, like, Cassandra, you're vegan, but you're still promoting lines that sell leather. What's up with that? And I had to sit down with myself and say, Cassandra, what's up with that? You know what I mean? Which was a great growing experience for me. But something that was negative was that these body image issues or these social media statistics were always getting in the way. And I think that the person that I was dating felt intimidated by the fact that in their eyes I was successful or I had achieved some sort of success. And the hardest part about that breakup is that when the breakup happened, I had no idea it was coming. And I was literally told, Cassandra, you're the reason that my mental illness has come back. You're the reason that I have been engaging in self-destructive behavior. You are the reason that I'm not recovering. And I lost it, Sarah. Like when you hear that the person that you love the most, that you have been like the boiling pot of pain for them for the past, how long was the relationship? Right. That ate me up inside. And it wasn't until long after that relationship that I realized I am not responsible for another person hurting themselves or engaging in negative behavior. I am not responsible for that behavior. I can see where some of the things that I would have said or maybe done could be triggering, but I cannot blame myself for somebody else's actions. But that was probably one of the hardest lessons for me. And then also seeing that I was in a good place confidence-wise. I thought the relationship was great. But then obviously the person that I was dating didn't feel that way. Right. Because they probably saw the relationship as shit because they're having issues with eating or issues with body image or issues, etc. Yeah.
And that's a healthy boundary to set. And one of the things that you brought up comparison again, I want to talk a little bit about this because this is actually one of the incentives that we have going on this month with Project Potential. So my community, projectpotential.co, if you sign up, you get a monthly newsletter that has 3 focus areas in Grow, Nourish, Flex. So the one having to do with Grow this month actually has to do with comparison. So we're calling it, did I tell you about this? We're doing compare and share is what we're calling. Meaning, if I catch myself making a comparison to another person, then I have to find 3 traits that I like about that person that I actually share with that person. Because the goal is to rewire our actual neurological makeup so that we're aware of when we're doing it and that we can start to value what it is that we bring to the table.
That is beautiful.
So
Sarah, that's so cool. Do you guys want to do an exercise right now about that?
Cool.
Think of someone who maybe that you've judged. And let's think of 3 positive things about them. Do you want to do that? Let's see, who have I judged? Ooh, I judged a politician hard. All right, let's think of 3 things positively. Let's see. I appreciate this person's drive to get what they want, and I appreciate this person's love and appreciation for their family. And I appreciate this person's way with words. How those words are used, I don't know to the full extent, but I appreciate that this person uses words to get something that they want or to do something that they believe is beneficial for their family or for someone else.
Yeah.
How about you?
Oh, 3. Well, mine would probably be 3 people, 3 things that I see in somebody else that I want to be like that person. So mine would be a judgment more in that it puts me in a shadow of feeling low about myself because, so if I have to think about one person.
Isn't that hard? Think about you guys too.
Really
Feel free to post it in the comments if you guys have
someone
any.
said neuro-linguistic programming. Yes.
Tell me about neuro-linguistic programming.
Well, that's just being able to change the words like what we talked about we actually talked about this last time we talked, having to do with using the word opportunistic instead of busy and how it helps us to value our time. So let me see if I have to think of somebody that I would like to be like. I'll think about the person maybe at my high school who was the most popular, who was like, the homecoming queen. I would say, because I would say, oh, I'm not like this person, and that's why I feel badly about myself. It really is that comparison that it helps us to recognize what it is that we feel that we're failing in. So let's see. So I might say, I'm like this person in the fact that we are both tenacious and go after what we want. I am like this person in the fact that I take pride in the way that I look, and I put enough effort forth in the morning because I know that I'm worth that. And I would also say now I'm like this person in that we have both started our own businesses and we're connectors in that way.
Sarah, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
It's hard to come up with somebody.
It is, but that is beautiful. And I do a live stream every single week on Facebook called Caffeinated with Cassandra, which Sarah did with me a couple weeks ago. And Sarah, you made a beautiful analogy about relationships and a balloon. Do you want to share that with us?
Sure. So we were talking about relationships being one-sided and how a one-sided relationship looks like a balloon that has a very small hole in it. And you may never realize that hole is in it, but when you try to blow up the balloon, it will never reach its full potential. And so if you leave a conversation or an engagement with someone and you're feeling exhausted, take a moment and ask yourself if it's because you are getting as much out of the relationship as you're putting in.
So the last relationship that I was in totally felt like I was just endlessly blowing a balloon and it had a hole in it and I couldn't understand why. And when Sarah first verbalized that to me, it put into words something I was never able to explain. And I appreciate that. And it sounds mean, like, oh, like a relationship with a family member. Like, how could I think that this isn't healthy for me? But there are certain people who just aren't a positive influence in our life. And if that is impacting you negatively, you need to take care of yourself before you can take care of someone else. Sharing is caring. You're right, Boyd.
Definitely.
And somebody did have a question. What should they do when they feel suicidal? I think I saw that as a question. There's a suicide hotline that you can definitely call. What, as a counselor, would you say to somebody who maybe came into their office and had a problem like that?
I would say similarly, we would assess for suicidality, meaning, like, is this something that they've had a previous thought about? Is this something they're actively feeling? We would probably establish a number, like we would call crisis if that was the case. And I've had to do crisis stabilization before. I think it's incredibly brave for somebody who's going through that to be able to verbalize what's going on for them in that moment, because that's the scariest part, is people who are silent about what's going on for them. If you can throw up the suicide hotline number for people, that would be awesome.
Could you actually, because I'm live stream on this phone, could we grab it just in case?
Yes,
there's actually an anti-bullying hotline too, which those are two things that when I was younger dealing with acne, if I would have known about, that would have been so helpful. If I known about her, like, it would have been so helpful. I cannot speak as a professional. I can only speak from personal experience, but I can say talk to somebody, because you are never truly alone. And the National Suicide Hotline prevention number is 1-800-273-8255. It's available 24 hours a day. And even if you just need somebody to talk to, that is a resource that is there for you. A beautiful, beautiful analogy that I just saw in the comments was that everyone's riding on their own boat. And that's so true. A quote from Oprah is, never look back at the other people in the race, because don't compare yourself to them. You're running your own race. You can only do better than you did yesterday. You were born with amazing, beautiful abilities and tools that nobody else has. And some people might sit there and think, oh, well, I got the short end of the stick. I'm just not good at math. My grades aren't that great, or I wasn't born into a great family. Let me tell you, aside of whatever excuses there are, you were given things that are unique to you. You were given things that nobody else has. And how can you compare your abilities or where you're at with somebody else when you're working on a completely different project, completely different tools, a completely different game? And you need to remember that you are capable of amazing things. You can change the world. You are doing things to change the world, but you're going to do that in a way that nobody else will, because there is nobody else like you. And comparisons just make us feel down and bad about ourselves, because, oh my God, she's so much prettier. Oh my God, she has so much going for her. Or, oh my God, you know, she got straight A's, or she's, you know, she was a bodybuilder or whatever it is. But she was. But you can never compare yourself, because there are so many differences, and you have different tools than other people have. Speaking of, do you want to talk about bodybuilding or nutrition or anything like that?
Somebody asked about, is that a number that will work in the U.S., the suicide hotline? I would say definitely look it up. I'm not sure that that's the same number for you. Someone else said that they weren't sure that they had anything going for them, and I will point out that your spelling was perfect. I'm just going to notice the little things, because I don't have this interpersonal relationship with you guys, so I can't provide counseling on here, but I want to challenge you to challenge yourself to find the things that you love about yourself, because sometimes it's very hard to identify those things if we're not used to pointing those things out.
Yeah. When I had my acne at its worst, all I would see is like my scars. Mm-hmm. And like my acne, and when I was having like body image issues that I didn't even know I was having issues with, like I could not look in a mirror. And so what I would do is I would take the little cosmetic mirror and I would look really close up at my eyes, and I would say, you know what, Cassandra, you have pretty eyes. Or you know what, today you've got pretty eyelashes. Or you know what, your ears are kind of cute. And it was literally those small, small things that ended up blossoming into self-love. Because when you think about it, think about our lives as a movie. Everything we see, we have an internal dialogue. We are narrating everything. And if we're talking in self-deprecating ways, I need to work out because I ate a certain thing, or, you know, negative self-talk about our skin, that's going to be a pretty depressing movie. But if we choose to actively identify that and try our best to change that narrative around and say, I'm going to allow myself the pleasure of whatever it is I'm eating, or I'm going to love my skin and realize that this blemish is only temporary, that helps us change our movie and our life. And what you think really does become a reality. And that's not, you know, mystical mumbo jumbo. Like, that's actually true, at least for me, and I'm living proof of that. You know, going
such an interesting analogy as you're saying that. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about, there was a fire in my neighborhood about a month ago. These people completely lost their home. Like, I was actually in my back room counseling somebody online, and I had no idea. I didn't hear the 8 fire trucks. Everybody was safe, thank goodness. And additionally, the dog was rescued. And now when I look at that house, the house looks so sad and ugly because it's completely demolished, and they're going to have to rebuild it from the ground up. But what survived are these cute little pinwheels in the front lawn. Pinwheels. And the pinwheels will continue to spin even though the house is completely demolished. And just like you were talking about focusing on those positive things, the pinwheels don't know what the house has been through. I know this is like a really strange analogy, but I want you guys to go there with me, because not everything has been destroyed. Some things are still active, and some things are still kind of moving with the wind as that's working. Yeah. So I think it's really interesting and eerie when I go past that house and the pinwheels are still spinning just as they had when the house was in one piece.
So the person that you're talking about, I actually knew them indirectly because they worked at a place that I would frequently go to.
Really?
Yeah. That was, wow. Like that, wow.
Whoa.
Wow. But like, that's a beautiful, beautiful analogy.
That's crazy.
And it's so true. Like, and I've talked about this hardly ever, but what brought me to loving myself was at a time where I had pretty much lost everything. I had given up on life. And people came and loved me at my absolute worst, at my ugliest, at my weakest. And that made me realize not all is ever gone. And that was what gave me the confidence and the strength to heal myself and then bring myself to a place where I made it my mission to heal other people. Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing. And another question, I saw somebody had a question in the comments, was about borderline personality disorder. I dated someone with borderline personality disorder, and it seems like a very tricky and not always talked about mental illness. Are you able to talk about that a little bit more?
I'm going to say that I don't diagnose anyone over the phone. I'm also going to say something that may have you thinking differently about it, which is that all of the diagnoses that are in the Diagnostic Statistics Manual were created so that clinicians can bill insurance companies. And just as I was talking about previously, having to do with this idea of listen and respond and accept. I want you to define your reality rather than putting yourself in a box of what it means to have this diagnosis. Now, if you need to seek professional help, certainly do that. But recognize that just because you have been diagnosed with something doesn't put you in that box and this is the way that you have to handle yourself or this is the way that you're seen in the world. You are not your diagnoses.
Yes, and remember that everything is a spectrum, whether it's ADHD, Asperger's, gender identity, sexuality. It's not straight and gay. There's so many things in between. It's not depressed and happy. There's so many things in between. It's not just Asperger's and autism. Like, there's things in between. And it's important to realize that, like you said, we are not our diagnosis, and there's always something in the middle. Something, a family member of mine has dealt with a lot of substance issues. And something about that is that for the longest time, this person identified as, I am a substance abuser. And so what happened? They acted as a substance abuser. But when somebody has cancer, they don't say, I am cancer. They say, I have cancer. So for me, it's not, I am depression. This is something that I have. But it is really important to make that distinction of, this is me. This is something that I have for a moment. But this does not define me. Just the same way acne, and I was. For the longest time, I was acne. And obviously, I was in a very unhealthy mental place. But when I stepped back and I said, I'm Cassandra, I have acne, but acne does not define me. That's when I started to grow and heal. And remember that whatever it is you're going through or have been diagnosed with or identify as, those are all labels, and labels can always change, which is important.
We are so many facets. We are so many wonderful facets. And for some reason, we tend to focus on the things that we want to change rather than the things that we embrace.
Right. Why is that? Do you know?
Probably the same reason that most of the news is negative, because it's interesting and it gives us something to focus on.
Wow, that's so true, Sarah. Somebody loves your eyes. You do have beautiful eyes,
from my
Sarah.
mom.
And so let's see, when it comes to nutrition, maybe we should do this on another video and talk about nutrition.
Like we should.
Since this is getting pretty long.
All the way out to see you again.
Absolutely. I've studied nutrition on and off for 4 years. She has done excellent bodybuilding, I believe, both her website and a whole bunch of the stuff she does with nutrition below. But guys, nutrition is something that I haven't talked for on my channel much because I didn't want to perpetuate negative body image because I didn't know if it was something I was suffering with. And also I'm not a clinician, but at the same time, if I have an experience, I should be able to share that. So yeah, if you guys have questions, do you want to open up for a couple of questions?
I'll open up for a couple
and then we're going to get going. Also, it's about 106 degrees here. We're like rubbing ice on each other or on ourselves.
I could rub it on her if she really did.
You know what I like, Sarah. You know what I like. No, but it's literally so hot. So if we are sweating and melting, that is why. But if you guys have any quick questions, we would love to answer. And if we ever do a live stream in the future, like make sure that you have the little ding dong bell notification button on, because that's when you'll know when I post about what I eat in a day, nutrition, self-help, sunscreens for acne. It'll be coming.
I want to give one of these to Vaughn because he's showing us his favorite finger. These are my 3 favorite fingers.
I love it. How can you tell if someone has Asperger's? So I actually thought that one of my family members had Asperger's. Actually, I'm not here to diagnose anybody, but I recommended they go check that out because there are certain things and certain behaviors that maybe are more apparent. But then again, these are all labels, and Asperger's is a total spectrum.
I would probably check in with myself and say, why is it important for me to know that person's diagnosis?
Ooh, serving me realness. Oh, that's so true. And it's